Good morning, everyone. Paul Ruppel here with Fox 29 News Now. Hope your Wednesday's off to a great start. We're following multiple stories this morning. I hope to bring you a couple of live events. One from Chester County, where they're announcing the results of an opioid drug operation. Another, the Democratic National House leadership, the House leadership is expected to hold a news conference this morning. That's supposed to begin soon. And then later this morning around 11 a.m., Philadelphia District Attorney is supposed to hold a news conference about enforcing an ordinance that deals with lost and stolen guns. That's District Attorney Larry Krasner and city officials holding that. So we hope to get you to all three of those live events. In the meantime, let's take a quick look at weather before we get going. As you can see, there's our next weather maker moving into the area. Live look at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway for your current conditions. Right now it is 34 degrees outside. Dew point is 19. Winds out of the south at 12 miles per hour. So not as stiff, winds not as stiff as they have been in recent days, but they're still there. Here are your wind speeds. Another look at radar there. And gusts right now, not too bad. Not reporting amounts there on the map at the moment. Your current temperatures around the region. See, we're in the mid-30s around much of the area, upper 30s along the coast. Mount Pocono, as is often the case, the lowest at 24 right now. Wind chill is certainly not as bad as yesterday. In the negative 20s and 30s on Mount Pocono on Monday. Right now it feels like 26 degrees in Philadelphia. We're warming up, and that's why this next weather system is going to bring us rain. Let's take a quick look at our future cast here. See, we're going to be getting some rainfall there. Could be heavy at times. That's why there is a flood watch in effect. Let me show you which areas that is for. This would be the green areas on your screen right now. Flood watch for a good portion of the I-95 corridor over to the coast in central Jersey. Spreading down into Maryland and Virginia and Washington, D.C., I believe. It's kind of a diagonal line there up and down the coast. So we'll get you your full 7-day forecast in a little bit. In the meantime, let's get you a look at a couple stories that we're following. President Trump's plan to end the government shutdown may start working its way through the Senate today. Also hearing some reports that it could be tomorrow that the vote occurs. Democrats are sure to oppose it, though, and as Fox News correspondent Doug Luzader reports from Washington this morning, this is sure to become a major issue looking forward to 2020. Here is Doug's report.
Freudian. The State of the Union address should be next Tuesday evening, right? But is it going to happen at all?
And this is as the Senate prepares to vote on plans to possibly end the partial government shutdown. The president's big speech is still up in the air, Doug.
Yes, Doug.
It is at that. Good morning, guys. But the White House is kind of moving full steam ahead as if this thing is, in fact, going to happen. And it's just one more standoff now between the president and the Speaker of the House. The White House is moving aggressively now to make the State of the Union address happen, despite objections from Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi, who has said it should be delayed during the partial government shutdown.
Nancy Pelosi does not dictate to the president when he will or will not have a conversation with the American people.
It is true that the Speaker controls access to the House, so will she actually block the president? We tried to chase her down yesterday to ask her.
This is how people get paid for their work.
The Washington Post is reporting that the White House is preparing two versions of the speech, a traditional one delivered in Washington or a second that could be used in another venue elsewhere in the country. It's possible, of course, that the government funding fight could be resolved, but dueling plans in the Senate to end the partial shutdown may go nowhere. And that includes the president's proposal to trade protections for some illegal immigrants for border wall funding.
To reject this proposal, Democrats would have to prioritize political combat with the president ahead of federal workers.
Democratic leaders have already rejected the GOP plan.
The president didn't ask what Democrats needed in a bill to achieve our support. He simply laid his proposal down on the table and proclaimed it a compromise.
All right, it looks like the Senate is going to vote on both of those proposals tomorrow. They may both go nowhere, and in fact, you're putting odds, that's probably likely what's going to happen. That vote will come a day before many federal workers will miss their second paycheck.
Well, people are pessimistic because the Republicans were in charge of the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office for the last 2 years. They couldn't get it done, and so
well, yeah, it's that 60-vote threshold, and that's going to be an issue for Republicans tomorrow and for Democrats. There's a Democratic plan. They need 60 votes to get that through, too. So neither side, well, it's going to be awfully difficult, let's say, for either side to muster those 60 votes because it requires some bipartisan work.
That's for sure. All right, thank you. Boy.
Meanwhile, local food trucks are helping federal workers by driving to the airport and donating food. The government shutdown now in day 33 is preventing these employees from receiving a paycheck and making it hard for them to pay for everyday essential items. Fox 29's Bill Anderson was at the airport this morning. Here he is with more.
Local food trucks. This will be a pretty cool scene. Local food trucks are helping federal workers by driving out to the airport, donating food. They'll pull right up there. The government shutdown, what is this, day 33? Is preventing people from getting their paychecks. So these are basically what essential items are going to have food, but they were passing out other products yesterday, like toilet paper and paper towels and stuff like that.
So Bill Anderson has the details on what's going to be out there today.
Yeah, guys, they've been handing out a lot of different things. You know, some people have had a hard time relating to the federal workers who are without pay. So I did a little bit of research, and I think that we were all a little surprised to find out their starting salary is in the high 20s. And with a bump can get up into the 30s. So they're like so many who, if they missed a paycheck, would struggle. And that's why folks are coming together trying to do something to help them. Local 98 today has donated 2 food trucks to serve hot meals to Transportation Security Administration workers who have been without paychecks now for over a month. So the Pizza Wagon and Wahlburgers food trucks are serving breakfast from 6:30 until 8:30 today and Friday, and then lunch from 2:30 until 4:30 on both days. That's the latest effort to try to show some support for these workers. And yesterday we were here as well. As food was being delivered, a food pantry has been set up. Anything to try to show some support for the workers. And Congressman Dwight Evans actually was here and says that they've got to do everything they can and they got to get them back getting paid.
Unfortunately, we need to resolve this and get these people paid and back to work. That's the number one priority. Secondly, I appreciate everybody who's donating to these workers. You know, these are our citizens. These are people who have done a lot for us. And I'm here just to show thank you to them and what they mean to all of us by working together. So I appreciate what is taking place here at the airport. I appreciate all the organizations that are donating for the purpose of their families and what they need.
Yeah, and as the congressman pointed out, they've done a lot for us, Mike and Alex, and they do it for an extremely low starting salary for what they do. So anything that we can do, the community can do to come together to support them, apparently they're doing, and I'm glad that we are.
Hello again, Paul here at Fox 29 News Now. We do have, we had another report this morning. We had some guests in to talk with us on Good Day Philadelphia this morning about the impact of the shutdown on them. Of course, it began at midnight on Saturday, December 22nd. For last month, we've been giving you every update as it happens. But it's important to remember the people caught in the crossfire of a political battle and now living without that paycheck, potentially their second paycheck later this week. 2 federal workers from our area spoke about the shutdown and how it's personally impacting them.
The partial government shutdown began at midnight on Saturday, December 22nd. And for the last month, we've been giving you every update as it happens. But it's important to remember also that people were caught in the crossfire of a political battle and are now living without a paycheck.
Can we talk about
soon to be 2 paychecks?
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, 2, and then 3's coming up in about 10 days. So we talk about numbers all the time, but there are people connected to those numbers. So we invited 2 furloughed employees here to tell us what life has been like in the past few weeks. Daryl Mady works for the FAA as an aviation safety specialist.
And Kim Jones is a revenue officer under the Treasury. And we want to make it clear they're speaking on behalf of themselves. They're not spokespersons for their employers. But we asked them to share their stories so we know what they're going through.
So, Kim, let's start with you. Well, we need to do the basics about you. Where are you from?
Philadelphia originally.
From Philly originally?
Yes.
Okay. And what exactly is your job?
I am a revenue officer, collect taxes from businesses and individuals.
Did you ever have to collect for me? Well, no, that's a whole other story. So, tell me about your family. Who are you supporting?
My mother and my son.
Tell me about your mom.
She's elderly, has Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
She's on medication, and we live day to day.
And your son?
My son is part-time work, and he helps out when he can, you know, but basically it's all on me.
You don't have to answer this. What range is your salary? How much do you think you're making a year? Is it under 50?
No.
Okay. But you're still struggling?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. How about you? Give me your background.
I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I've been living in the Philadelphia area since the early 90s. I'm Federal Aviation Administration employee, so I'm an aviation safety inspector. My background's aircraft maintenance.
Who are you supporting financially?
I'm supporting my daughter. I have 2 daughters. My older daughter is actually working, and she's independent. I have a daughter in college.
College.
Yeah, and you know, my partner, she has a daughter in college as well.
Right.
So, you know, the household revenue is cut in half because I'm not bringing anything home.
Okay.
And what has it been like for you guys? Because for us, we've been doing these stories and saying, okay, now we're in day 31, now it's 32. But for you guys, what has it been like these past 32 days?
It's rough. In the beginning, it was like, okay, a week went by and a couple of days off, fine. All right, second week came, okay, when are we going back to work? You know, it's a struggle when you're used to getting up every day, going to work, and all of a sudden you have nowhere to go. You have to depend on others, you know, for financial support and just strength in general. It's hard.
You look like you're getting worried.
Yes, very.
And why wouldn't you?
And it's depressing. It's starting to get depressing.
The history of these shutdowns, this is now the longest. So I understand why you thought, well, okay, we'll go over a little bit, maybe 15, 17 days.
We did 17 days before.
That's right.
That was no problem, okay? But now we're going past a month.
Well, the other thing is that there doesn't seem to be any end in sight.
Right.
Right.
It's very stressful because you don't know. We don't know if it will end, when it will end.
Right.
And we just want to get back to work.
We just want to go back to work. Enough is enough. We want to be paid.
Right.
Back pay, and we want to know that we're going to have a future pay.
Right.
As simple as that.
Have your coworkers and things, have you guys been getting together at all, or how are they coping? And
Everybody's in the same boat.
Yeah.
Everybody is in the same boat.
So how are you getting by?
Well, savings, and savings is not going to last much longer.
Right.
You know, January was covered. I don't know what's going to happen in February.
My gosh, that's days away.
Yes.
I mean, the outpour from the community, from family and friends, has been very heartwarming.
Yes,
I mean,
and the organizations.
The episode you had earlier on the broadcast we saw in the green room about.
Are you surprised by people coming forward?
Yes, very amazed, very amazed. You know, I never thought that people would come about and help like the way that they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, I was really shocked. Yes, yes.
I know now we're reaching into uncharted territory. So, I mean, what's your worst fear about what might happen if this just, because there's no end in sight. It doesn't seem like they're going to come to an agreement anytime soon.
Losing my home.
Yeah.
Losing your home.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a college tuition payment that's due in early February, and that's going to be very difficult. I'm praying we get back to work before the end of this month, but we're not seeing a lot of movement in Washington. We're worried.
How soon is it going to get critical for your home, do you think?
February 1st.
Yeah, agreed.
This is the 23rd.
Yeah, I know.
That's coming up.
Yes. I have a mortgage payment.
You got a mortgage payment?
Yes.
And at this point, you wouldn't be able to pay it?
No, I would not.
I wish we had answers. I wish I could give you, just buy you a house right now, but.
They need to end the shutdown. They need to bring us all back to work and pay us.
Yes.
We shouldn't be in the middle of this. None of the 800,000 people signed up for this.
What do you think it's going to take? Some like horrible thing happen in the country to bring everybody together? I mean, I hope it's not that.
I hope
this is horrible enough.
Yeah.
This is horrible enough.
Well, we're thinking of you.
Thank
We
you.
are. And thank you for sharing your story so people can know just how many people this is affecting and know some of the stories.
Yes.
The best of
appreciate it.
both your families, too.
Thank you.
Keep us updated if you would.
Will do.
Okay. All right. Taking a
Hello, Paul Ruppel here again with you on Fox 29 News Now. I want to get you out to, this is a news conference where officials in Phoenix are announcing an urgent update. This is in the case of a woman who's been in a vegetative state who gave birth at the Hacienda Health Care Facility. Let's listen in to the announcement being made here.
We have worked virtually nonstop every day, every night, 7 days a week, trying to solve and resolve this case. The investigation was and still is the highest priority for our department. Through a combination of good old-fashioned police work, combing through evidence, talking to people, following up on information, combined with the marvels of DNA technology, we are able to identify and develop probable cause to arrest the suspect. And at this time, I am announcing the arrest of the suspect we believe who is responsible. He is 36-year-old Nathan Sutherland. Sutherland is a licensed practical nurse who was responsible for providing care to the victim during this time the sexual assault occurred. Sutherland is being booked as we speak into the Maricopa County Jail, where he will be charged with 1 count of sexual assault and 1 count of vulnerable adult abuse in connection with this crime. I want to purposely recognize and thank the men and women of the Phoenix Police Crime Lab, the Family Investigations Bureau, as well as the Fugitive Apprehension, Investigation, and Street Crimes Detail. Without your tireless work and effort, this would not be possible, and I wouldn't be standing here today. This, again, is a testament to the drive and compassion that the employees of the Phoenix Police Department have for our community. We owed this arrest to the victim. We owed this arrest to the newest member of our community, that innocent baby. So with that, if I can entertain a few questions, and then I'll turn it over to Sergeant Tommy Thompson.
Chief, how did you come to the conclusion that it was Mr. Sutherland?
So again, old-fashioned police work, talking to people in DNA technology, and just literally combing through details of information is how we were able to form probable cause for this arrest.
Was Mr. Sutherland currently charged with or caring for this victim, or was it several months ago that he was caring for?
So I will need to have Sergeant Thompson answer that, but we do know that Sutherland was employed at Hacienda.
Currently. What DNA database was the match made on?
I will need to have Sergeant Thompson talk about that.
Has this individual worked in other facilities like this, whether they're disability or elderly?
So we will have Sergeant Thompson talk about that too. So we're just here again to announce the details and just the fact that this horrible crime happened was beyond reproach. And when we all heard about it, we were extremely concerned about it, and we knew it was going to be our top priority. So any investigative details, I'm going to leave that to Sergeant Thompson. But I am proud of the work that the men and women of this police department do each and every day, day in and day out. We're very blessed to have the folks that we have.
Chief, let me ask you before we begin investigative questions, how many members of law enforcement worked on this case? And in your time in law enforcement, have you ever seen anything like this?
So we've not, in my 30 years in law enforcement, have not seen that. We've had hundreds of people working with the police department. So we talked a little bit about it. We have the Family Investigations Bureau, the Crime Lab, the Fugitive Apprehension Detail, Patrol, administrative staff, you name it. We've all been all in on this. And to the credit of for the mayor and city council, we constantly kept them updated on what's going on, and they really left it wide open for us to take care of our job and do what we do best, and that's take care of our community.
A few weeks ago, Hacienda had brought out Rick Romley to do an internal investigation of their own happenings inside of Hacienda, and a lot of people were a little bit skeptical if they were going to cooperate. How helpful, or if at all, was Hacienda with this investigation?
So I will leave that to the investigators, but suffice to say we made an arrest. So regardless of what may have been talked about in the media, talked about in the public, my folks stayed true to the investigative process and made an arrest. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tommy Thompson, that's going to answer any more questions so we can exit. Thank you.
Thank you. As you know, we have a fallen firefighter. The funeral is today at 10 o'clock, so a lot of our people have to be to that. Let me just say that you all became aware of this investigation when we held a press conference about 10 or 14 days ago to give you the information. And let me give you an update on where we are, and I'll go back a little bit in time in case some of you aren't familiar with what actually transpired. On December the 29th, 2018, Phoenix police officers responded to a healthcare facility in the area of 1400 East South Mountain Avenue, reference a baby that was in distress. At that point, we found out that the mother was incapacitated, which was a flag to us. We realized that she was not in a position to give consent, and we began immediately to conduct a sexual assault investigation. Members of the Family Investigations Bureau responded to the scene and they started that investigation. I am here to tell you that working with the investigators, they have worked pretty much non-stop since this incident occurred over 3 weeks ago. Now, through the course of their investigations, detectives authored and served search warrants to obtain records to identify individuals who may have had access to the victim in this case. In addition, detectives authored court orders to obtain DNA evidence from numerous individuals. That evidence was sent to the Phoenix Police Department Crime Lab, and those individuals worked tirelessly to compare those DNA samples with DNA obtained from the baby. Now, one of the samples obtained through a court order was from 36-year-old Nathaniel Sutherland. Sutherland was a licensed practical nurse, or an LPN, who was responsible for providing care to the victim during the time this sexual assault occurred. On Tuesday, January 22nd, that was yesterday, the scientists in the Phoenix Police Crime Laboratory determined the sample obtained from Sutherland matched the baby. Shortly after that determination, Sutherland was taken into custody by officers from the Phoenix Police Department Fugitive Apprehension Investigations Detail and taken to Phoenix Police Headquarters for processing. Based upon probable cause that they developed through this investigation, Nathan Sutherland is being booked into the Maricopa County Jail today as we speak, charged with 1 count of sexual assault and 1 count of vulnerable adult abuse. Now, let me just say that this case is still ongoing. We're still gathering information, and investigators are encouraging anyone who may have information about this incident to contact the Phoenix Police Department. They can call the Violent Crimes Bureau at 602-262-6141, or of course our partner Silent Witness, which is 480-WITNESS. For Spanish, it's 480-TESTIGO. Now, I'm sure you have questions.
Tell me, how did the process go with the DNA sampling? So obviously it sounds like this guy, he is an employee, and you guys went and DNA sampled everyone, or all the males? What was that process?
So, as I told you on the initial press conference, this is a long process to obtain information. So we started working inward, working outward, and that involving people who were employed at that facility. So one of the individuals that came to our attention was Mr. Sutherland. So as we went through that process, he was detained yesterday and brought into the Phoenix Police Department headquarters for processing. And based upon a court order, we were able to obtain DNA samples, DNA evidence from him, which was compared to that of the baby. And that's when the crime laboratory scientists confirmed that in fact, that he was the suspect in this case.
You mentioned that he was brought to your attention. How? Did people maybe point out maybe something happened?
Through the course of the investigation, he was an individual that was identified as a person who possibly had access to the victim in this case. When the incident occurred, he was responsible for care of that victim.
Are you looking into whether he may have assaulted his victim multiple times or any other patient at the facility?
Again, this investigation is ongoing. That would be one of our concerns, is were there other victims or how many times this occurred. We may not know how many times this occurred. And I will tell you something that as an investigator, as a member of our community, that I look at as important is this was an employee rather than a stranger who made his way into the facility. This individual had access and actually was employed there. It's my understanding that he was not working at the time that we contacted him and obtained that evidence. But I don't know for certain if he's still at that facility. I think he's still employed there, or was. We have no indications that there were other people involved, but again, this is an ongoing investigation.
To be clear, 2 samples, DNA samples?
You know, I don't know the specific number. I don't know that. Yesterday was the first day we obtained samples from him.
Do you know if he has worked at other facilities like this one in the past?
I don't know his work history. And again, we're reaching out to the community to have anyone that has information to contact us so that we can follow up. Again, still an ongoing investigation.
Why did it take so long to obtain the DNA sample? I know you had to go through the proper court orders and all of that, but were you getting samples from other people? Was he not high on the list? Why did it take so long?
We were continuing through the process, and again, it's a significant amount of time required to identify people who were employed by the facility, to then contact those people, to bring them in to obtain DNA samples from them. So it's quite a process.
That sample, I mean, he gave it willingly, or was there, any type of discussion on his end where he was refusing, knowing that he would be caught?
The information I have is that he gave the sample after after he found out that we did have a court order compelling him to provide that evidence.
So you mentioned that you found Mr. Sutherland because he was around, he worked with the patient around the time that she may have gotten pregnant. When was that?
Well, we think this baby was full term or very close to it. So if you just backtrack, Cameron, backwards 9 months from December the 29th, we believe it occurred during that time that he was working there.
Is Mr. Sutherland being cooperative? I mean, after he was arrested, did he make any statements about this?
Mr. Sutherland invoked his Fifth Amendment rights and did not participate in an interview.
What is the spelling of his name?
I will have that. Let me point that out. I'll put out a press advisory. I'm just waiting for the booking number so that you can get a booking photo of him. But his first name is spelled Nathan, Nathan. Sutherland is Sutherland, Sutherland, Nathan Sutherland. And he's 36 years of age.
Any other patients were assaulted at the facility?
I'm sorry, please.
Are you investigating whether any other patients at the facility were also the victim?
If that information comes to our attention, then we will pursue that. Some of the things that you ask, and it's been interesting as we've gone through this process. We've had a number of opinions, a number of ideas that have come to our organization. One of the things to keep in mind, we're leaving that to the individuals, the family, the caretakers to determine what other testing, but we're prepared to take this investigation wherever it goes. And let me point out that while we handle the criminal investigation, there are other things that the state agencies are dealing with, the regulatory agencies, the ones who oversee care facilities such as this. And I will also tell you a question that has been asked to me several times is, were there any other agencies brought in to assist us? Let me say that our federal partners from the start have offered their assistance should we need it. At this point, we haven't needed it. But again, as I've said from the start, if we develop any other information, we are prepared as the Phoenix Police Department to follow those leads, to follow those investigations, and follow this investigation wherever it ultimately takes us. I don't have his information. Keep in mind he was an LPN, a licensed practical nurse, and there's some fairly strict regulations and laws on criminal activity and maintaining that certification.
How cooperative, if at all, was Hacienda Healthcare throughout this process?
I don't know specifically, but I'm led to believe that the detectives were able to obtain the information that they needed. Again, we use search warrants, we use court orders, because that, as we go down through the prosecutorial system, as we go through the adjudication process, those search warrants, those court orders become important. So we use those, and that relieves a lot of the responsibility from the facility to, because they have to do it under the order of a judge.
What's left in the investigation then? We have an arrest, but I imagine it's not over. We still have to deeper into how and why this would even occur.
Again, we're dealing with a large investigation. We told you it was yesterday that we were able to finally get to this individual to go through the testing process. An investigation is accompanied by many, many, many hours of writing reports and putting those in order. So again, we still have evidence to go through. We want to make sure that we have a solid case. At this point, again, we've developed probable cause, and that's why Mr. Sutherland was arrested.
It seems like throughout this process, the most difficult part, and if that's wrong, let me know. But it seems like the most difficult part is that the victim in all of this, from what we know, wasn't able to communicate at least too much what had happened. But we have learned recently that she is able to make some communications. Has she been able to help the investigation?
I don't know to what extent that she's been able to help. That there are challenges in any investigation. Certainly that was a challenge. Just the sheer size, the scope, the magnitude of this investigation was in and of itself a challenge for us.
Do you know his position, how many patients he cared for at the facility? Did he go around the entire facility?
I don't know that. Question was asked also how many different facilities he may or may not have worked at. I don't have that information.
Did he have a record?
I'm not aware of any record that he has. I will tell you this, that our information is that he was employed and did work at the facility. I don't know who his actual employer was, but I can tell you that he worked at that facility since about 2011.
You had said that based on other individuals had brought his name up to your attention. Are those individuals going to be held responsible if they knew that maybe he had was behaving inappropriately with the patient?
That's a great question. We're asking people who have any information to come forward. If those are fellow employees, if they're the family members of patients that this individual may or may not have had contact with, if they've got information, we would like to get that information so that we can find out how it pertains to our investigation, or if it pertains to our investigation.
I don't know if he was contracted, so maybe working hopping facilities, or specifically hired by Hacienda to work solely at Hacienda, their skilled nursing, their IFC, or their whatever, their intermediate care facility.
That's correct. To recap what you just said, I don't know who his actual employer is. As many of you are aware, nurses often contract, do different things, and I can't answer that question. I don't have this gentleman's employment history.
How was the baby doing?
I'm glad you brought that up. The baby, I am told, is doing good. This is a baby that's, I would just say that we can't always choose how we come into this life, but what we can choose to do as a community is love this child, and that's what we have the opportunity to do. And I'm pleased to say that the baby, I am told, is doing quite well.
Is the baby still in the hospital?
I'm led to believe that the baby's out of the hospital. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I'm led to believe that. So.
Do we know any more about Nathan, Mary, kids, where he was taken?
I don't have a lot of that information, and we typically wouldn't put that out anyway.
Do we know at all, now that we know that the baby, we believe the baby was full term, is it become any clearer in the past 23 days or whatever, how no one knew that this woman was pregnant?
I don't know as far as the investigation from our perspective. I think that's a question better asked by the health officials, because I'm certain that's a question they will ask through their internal investigations.
And do we have a date of birth for Mr. Sutherland?
We don't put out the date of birth, but I can tell you he's 36 years of age.
Can you say anything about the history of Mr. Sutherland's interactions with the victim? Like, was he
specifically alone with her, and was he charged with tasks like bathing her or?
I don't know the specific tasks. I can tell you that he was and is an LPN, a licensed practical nurse, and he was responsible for providing care. What that care consisted of, I don't have that information. I don't have that information, but I can tell you that during the period when we believe this incident occurred, the sexual assault occurred, we believe that he was the LPN, at least part of the time, responsible for her care. Sexual assault and vulnerable adult abuse, 1 count each.
Do you have a middle name?
I don't have a middle name. That's the information I was given.
Long-term care facilities being investigated?
I'm sorry, what?
Any other care facilities being investigated?
We were looking at this as a sexual assault. That was the extent of our investigation. You'll have to talk to some of the state agencies to find out, are they looking into any others? We don't know. That's a great question. Keep in mind, we ask people to call silent witness. When we receive a tip from silent witness, we can't acknowledge that it came. So I'm not saying that he came, but I'm just letting you know when we receive tips, we guard that anonymity, which has been protected in the court system. So I'm just going to say that we're grateful for information that we have received, and we're asking the community if they have any more information to provide that for us.
And he was actively working there until yesterday?
My understanding is he was still employed at that facility.
Can you go over the timeline of the last couple days one more time since it came to your attention first?
So let me just real quick hit that. Obviously, this incident occurred on the 29th of December, 2018. We began working. We served search warrants to make sure that we identified employees that had been working there, as well as anyone that we could identify who possibly had contact with the victim. As they were going through that process, yesterday, Mr. Sutherland was brought in under the order of a court order. He provided a DNA sample. That DNA sample was tested. And I will tell you this, that because we were going through that process, it was later in the afternoon that we went back and recontacted him, took him into custody, and then he's been going through interviews or processing with the detectives, and then today, as we speak, he's currently being booked into the Maricopa County Jail.
So after the DNA sample was tested, did he leave? And he had
That is correct.
And was he the one and only to have his DNA tested?
No. There have been others. Again, this is an ongoing process.
So he was not the first?
I think that's fair to say, yes.
And it was only males DNA tested?
Well, Cameron, in this case, yes, it was only males that were tested in a sexual assault. I don't know specifically where he was arrested, but I'm told it was not at the facility. Okay.
What do you have to say to families of people at Osage? Can they breathe a sigh of relief because the investigation is ongoing?
Well, again, this investigation is ongoing. We are pleased that we were able to identify a suspect, and as I said earlier, we're pleased to find out that it was not a stranger who had access there. And that's, again, an ongoing investigation where we want to determine, we want to be able to determine if there's where this investigation takes us.
And this might be kind of a stupid question, but that was just a quick match that you guys were able, you took it to the lab yesterday, and by what it seemed like a couple hours later, you had that match.
It was a little longer than that. It took quite a portion of the day, and it was checked, rechecked, triple checked, quadruple checked. That is correct. That's fair. Any other questions? Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Certainly.
You've been watching a news conference brought to us thanks to our sister station KSAZ in Phoenix, Arizona. Sad case where a male nurse has been arrested in the case of a woman in a vegetative state who unexpectedly gave birth last month at Hacienda Healthcare there in Phoenix. KSAZ has been reporting that a source close to the investigation says the patient is a 20-year-old woman who became comatose after a near drowning, and she was being cared for at Hacienda Healthcare. That patient was reportedly sexually assaulted by someone who had access to her at the facility, and staff reportedly did not know she was pregnant until the baby was born. That's what KSAZ has reported in the past, and we've brought to you, our viewers here at Fox 29 in Philadelphia. They have announced an arrest. They say it's a male nurse who was in charge of the woman's care. They said the baby seems to be doing well. Police weren't certain, but believe the baby has left the hospital. And that nurse submitted to court-ordered DNA testing, and that has contributed to the sexual assault charges that have been filed. So we'll have more for you on the Fox 29 News at 5, 6, 10, and 11 on this case. We'll continue to follow it. And in the meantime, let's get you back to some other stories. We are awaiting a news conference that could occur soon in Chester County, where they are announcing the arrest, they're disclosing the outcome of a drug enforcement operation, opioids and heroin, I believe. And we'll take you there as soon as that happens. We had just finished up talking about the federal shutdown, the partial government shutdown. I wanted to bring you a couple of tweets from the president, just his conversation this morning about... Mute that sound that was still there. I think they pulled the news conference back up. President said, great unity in the Republican Party wants to once and for all put an end to stoppable crime and drugs, border security and wall, no doubt. And he said, build a wall, crime will fall. This is the new theme for 2 years until the wall is finished under construction now of the Republican Party. Use it and pray. Build a wall, crime will fall. So the president creating a slogan there of his stance on the federal shutdown, and which the Senate, as we are reporting earlier in the show, brought you. The Senate is expected to take a vote later today or tomorrow on the plan that the president pitched on Saturday during a White House statement. We'll see what happens. The House has voted, I believe it's at 9 times now, to reopen the government, but those bills have not been taken up in the Senate, at least more recently they have not. The first originally passed the Senate and went to the president's desk, but has not been signed. So we'll get you more on that as it comes in. In the meantime, let's take a look at business news. The Super Bowl is happening in Chick-fil-A's home city of Atlanta. The popular food chain even has a store inside the stadium, but the question now is, will they alter their policy for the occasion and open for Super Bowl Sunday? Fox's Tracy Carrasco has more. This was her conversation with our anchors, Alex and Mike, this morning on Good Day Philadelphia.
You know, the one thing I wanted, Kit Kat Klein, was the capital M. I don't think it's even in there.
Oh, yeah, that's hard.
Jeez. It was the original reason we were doing it.
We're back on. I don't know if you know.
Are we?
Yeah.
Oh.
So let's talk about this. So, you know, even though we don't care because we're not in it, but you know the Super Bowl is happening in Atlanta. I didn't know Chick-fil-A was started in Atlanta. Huh.
What? That seems about right.
Okay, well, the more you know. So they have Chick-fil-A's inside of the stadium.
Inside the stadium.
Mm-hmm. So now the question is, some people are wondering, as they're getting their Super Bowl tickets, Tracy, if they have Chick-fil-A in the stadium, and if apparently Chick-fil-A, you know, his hometown is in Atlanta, will they be serving Chick-fil-A? It's on a Sunday.
It's on a Sunday, and Chick-fil-A's are not open on Sunday for
Right.
religious reasons by the man who started the company. So what's the decision?
Chick-fil-A has no plans on opening up its location inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta for Super Bowl Sunday. They will be closed, sticking with their policy of being closed every single Sunday. It was something that the Fast food restaurant instituted back in 1946 so that employees would have one day of rest or to worship however they please. But yes, another vendor will be moving into that location for the day. But I don't know that we should be too worried about Chick-fil-A. The CEO told Fox Business that in 2018, they still had about $10.5 billion worth of sales. So I think they make up for it on the other days.
They'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't think they're that worried.
Yeah.
Now, you could, because I've seen some people, as fundraisers, will buy Chick-fil-A sandwiches in bulk and then sell them, So I guess technically someone else could take the sandwich, if it's that necessary, and sell them on the Sunday. That way it's not Chick-fil-A.
I can just see it out in the parking lot. I might go down there and do this.
Get your Chick-fil-A on a Sunday.
Right here, baby.
Chick-fil-A secondary market.
Yeah. I got a chicken sandwich right here.
A bootleg Chick-fil-A sandwich, yeah.
Do it in an alley somewhere?
Chick right here. Well, they're not, they're going to lose money from the Super Bowl, but how many people are in that stadium,
That's true.
But the positive, the guy's sticking to his guns. If he sold out and sold this on a Sunday just because it was a Super Bowl, that's not good.
And plus, they say it's for religious reasons, so you don't want to,
he's sticking to
give
his
up
beliefs.
for money, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Tracy. Well, thanks for letting us know. I mean, we're not going to be there, so it doesn't affect us.
Me neither.
Right.
Yeah. Who are you rooting for? Do you have a rooting interest or not?
I'm rooting for the Rams, of course, from Los Angeles.
Oh, that's true.
Like me.
I forgot about that.
Good point.
I got you. Plus, we're all sick of Brady. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
That was Mike and Alex talking with Tracy Carrasco at the Fox Business Network. One of the nation's busiest airports was shut down last night after 2 drones were spotted nearby. All arrivals were on hold for a while at Newark Liberty International after pilots spotted a pair of drones near Teterboro Airport, which is only 20 minutes from Newark. Departing flights had to sit a while longer because of congestion. A police helicopter launched to try to find the drones and their operators. The FAA is now investigating. Parents break out into an all-out brawl during a middle school basketball game. Police now say they expect to file charges. Fox 29's Steve Keeley had this report this morning for us from Pennsville, and here
7:03. Well, look at the parents here. They break out into a brawl during this middle school basketball game. Who knows what was said that sparked this thing, but police now may file charges.
And in fact, they may file charges this morning. So Steve has those details outside of the Pennsville Police Department.
Hey, Steve.
Well, you're not going to see a slam dunk at a basketball game among 12 and 13-year-olds, but we found out you might say a body slam. Here's the video. So 12 and 13-year-olds playing in a middle school gym, and the gym only has stands on one side of the court because it's so small here in Pennsville, and that forces the moms from Salem and Pennsville, the 2 teams playing each other, to sit together in the stands. So one rooting maybe too loud against another mom's kid, and words are exchanged, and then suddenly slaps, fists, punches, kicks, you name it, and the refs suddenly have to stop the game to go into the stands and try to stop the fighting. It takes 3 police officers from Pennsville to eventually get everybody separated, and now they've looked at this video, both close up and slow-mo, and they figured out who's who and who did what to who, and now aggravated assault charges are coming as early as today.
A couple of mothers got into a verbal altercation, which led to a physical altercation, and several people were punched and beat up, and one of the basketball players even entered the stands. I don't know if he was going up to defend his mother or what, and we're going to be filing charges against each individual who was involved in the incident.
The parents honestly think are ruining the game. They're getting involved, they're screaming at refs. Half the time they don't know what they're talking about. It's just getting bad in general all around.
And talking to investigators here this morning at Pennsville Police Headquarters, one of the involved is not just a mom, but a grandmom, 60 years old, and her daughter, an adult mom, also involved, and then another relative. So 3 from one family, among those being likely charged today.
Remarkable charges could be announced today. We'll, of course, bring those to you if we get them on fox29.com and our newscast later in the day. We'll bring you any developments on that story. Police in Bucks County are investigating a body found encased in ice in a pool. The body was discovered yesterday at a business in the town of New Hope. That's in Bucks County. It took some time for authorities to remove the body from the icy pool. No word yet on the person's identity and cause of death. Controversy continues around the Mariner Pipeline project running through Chester County and other communities. Another sinkhole has appeared along Lisa Drive in West Whiteland Township, where pipeline owner Energy Transfer operates a line. The Mariner East 1 pipeline has been shut down while crews work to close it. The sinkhole, that is. The company says it's working with state regulators on the fix, while critics want the project stopped, and the district attorney is questioning security on the scene.
There's really no reason in Chester County to have an armed person guarding this pipeline. The residents just want to make sure it's done safely. Now, putting somebody who's armed out there is to keep people away, to intimidate them.
Energy Transfer tells Fox 29 it hired security at the request of impacted neighbors concerned about trespassing. Critics want the governor to shut down the entire project. His spokesperson said he doesn't have the authority. You may have heard our assignments manager there, Kevin, letting me know that we have a shot up of the Philadelphia District Attorney's news conference, which we expect to be held at 11 a.m., so please stay with us for that. A little bit of information. This will be DA Larry Krasner and city officials to begin enforcement of a lost and stolen gun ordinance. This is announcing the enforcement of the city's failure to report lost or stolen firearm code. The law has been on the books for nearly a decade, but never before enforced by the DA's office. So we'll take you there as soon as that happens. I believe that'll begin at 11 a.m. In other news, the Mummers Mardi Gras Parade and string band performances are returning to South Philly. And preparations are already underway. For the past 5 years, Manayunk has been home to the celebration. The man behind the big event joined former Congressman Bob Brady yesterday at the new home of Mummers Mardi Gras inside the 2300 Arena on Swanson Street.
We certainly appreciated the time that we spent in Manayunk. We had some great traditions there, but we did we did look to move this event down to South Philadelphia to really bring it back to its roots.
That was Joe DiCandido, creator of Mummers Mardi Gras. All 16 Mummers string bands were at yesterday's announcement. Mummers Mardi Gras is happening on February 23rd. We'll let their tunes play us out there. Don't get to bring you many tunes on the show here, so happy to do that today. Don't pass on the pasta. We're talking about faux pasta alternatives that will follow your diet without leaving you hungry. Here's the conversation from Good Day Philadelphia this morning.
Mamma mia. Ciao, Bella.
That's
Ciao,
wonderful.
Bella.
Thank you.
Well, we all love pasta.
Yes, we do, and I can't let it go. But when you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to watch your carbs, you know pasta can be a no-no.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a problem unless you do an alternative type of pasta.
Just fool your brain into thinking you're eating pasta. Yeah. But do they taste as good? Are they as satisfying? This faux pasta idea. Look who's back. It's Emily Rubin.
Hi.
Registered dietitian and nutritionist at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital. Great to see you again, Emily.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, and thanks so much for wearing my my Italian mustache.
Oh, oui. No, what's Italian?
No, and I'll save a crown for you because this is actually pictures of all the different pastas, the boxes.
Does this make me a pasta princess?
Oh.
I'll take it.
A PP. Obviously, we all know what a plate of pasta looks like, but just in case
For
you've been
comparison
out of the
purposes.
world for a
Exactly.
while, that's a plate of pasta.
This is just regular pasta, and we can compare that one later to try in between.
Okay.
Or do you want to try that first to see do you remember what regular
We
pasta?
know what pasta tastes like.
Okay.
We have it almost every day, and that's
Do you
our
really?
problem.
I know.
Well, the issue is sometimes people, they don't want to eat pasta because they're
Right.
either watching their weight or they're diabetic, or even they need to watch pasta if they need to follow a gluten-free diet.
Well, the definition of pasta is it's dough, it's flour, it's water, it's all that kind of stuff.
It's with some enriched vitamins.
Yeah.
It has about 42 grams of carbohydrate per cup serving, which this is about a serving of pasta,
Okay.
which is a really small amount.
So you say you can fool our brains by making it out of more healthy products. That is made from chickpeas?
Pure chickpeas.
I
Chickpeas
love
and water.
chickpeas.
Wow.
And it has 14 grams of protein, 11 grams of fiber, and only 32 grams of carb.
You would have fooled me, woman.
Here we go. I love these cute little forks, by the way. Cutest thing. All right, here we go.
That's satisfying to me, but
Yeah,
that's not bad.
same consistency.
There's some sauces here if you wanted to try the pesto or the tomato pesto.
You've got to make sure to keep the sauces and the gravy somewhat healthy.
And to a minimum,
right.
yeah.
So
All right.
this is actually made from lentil, zucchini, and egg white. And this is only 120 calories per cup, about this size. It has 9 grams of protein. I know, sorry about the little.
It's all right.
The little 9 grams of protein and 2 grams of fiber.
I like that one even better.
You do?
Well, this is
A little
lower
bit better.
carbohydrate. And these two are both gluten-free.
I think I'm more of a chickpea fan.
Is
All right,
Yeah,
well,
this is dehydrated. It was pasta. It was pure green beans. That's it. Green beans.
Oh, it looks
I actually
like-
think this tasted really, really good. And it only has 180 calories. It has 24 grams of protein and 11 grams of 11 grams of fiber and 32 grams of
It's
carbohydrate.
like fettuccine.
I like this. I love green beans, so.
It's also gluten-free as well. It's
Very
low
nice.
carb, high protein. So again, the point of this is you're going to feel more satisfied. You're going to feel more full.
That's
good.
your winner so far for me.
Green beans are good.
Now, this one actually is boxed veggie pasta. It's the same nutrition content as our regular pasta. It has 42 grams of carbohydrate, only 3 grams of fiber, and 8 grams of protein.
So that's real pasta.
It's real pasta.
So why'd you bring that in?
Because I wanted to show you that a box, she's wearing the Veggie Delight hat here, that the box, people think when they go buy veggie pasta in a box that it's actually healthy or lower carb, and it isn't.
darn.
42 grams of carb, 42 grams of carb.
Oh, okay.
Which is equivalent to about 2 pieces
This
of bread.
is just like beets.
That stains, so be careful.
Okay, I love beets.
They're called beet zoodles. What they do is you take the beet and you actually create it into a zoodle, into a noodle form.
Can you feel the beet? Now, it tastes like beets, so you have to like beets, I guess.
Well,
to do
yeah.
it.
So, and that is
But-
extremely low calorie.
That's
It's only
really good.
40 calories.
Beat it. Beat it.
5 grams of
Good one.
protein.
All right, so what's your vote, Mike? What's your favorite?
Well, I like beets, so I like that.
Right.
But I got to go the thing that looks like fettuccine, the green beans.
Yeah, I thought that one was great.
The chickpeas, the green beans, or the beets? I'm all for it. Where can we get this at, like Whole Foods or something?
Whole Foods, Trader Joe's. Actually, I've got these all at the regular grocery store at a
That's really
shop
good.
rate.
Even better.
Yeah.
Love it.
Thank you so
Oh
much.
yeah, thanks so much for
I
having
like
me.
when they do zucchini too. They make it look like it's like spaghetti, but it's zucchini.
Exactly.
It kind of fools my brain. You know what I mean?
I'm all for it.
I was wrong. I did get to bring you one more piece of musical music this morning. That was Mike Jarrett doing Beat It for that segment, Michael Jackson's song. Want to let you know, thank you to, that was Emily Rubin. She's a registered dietitian and nutritionist at Thomas Jefferson University Hospital, who joined Good Day this morning to talk with us for that segment. All right, right now let's get you, let's get a live look at the news conference we're waiting to begin. Again, this is in Philadelphia. This is the District Attorney's Office. We'll be holding a news conference to discuss enforcement of a lost and stolen gun ordinance. This law has been on the books for nearly a decade, but has not been enforced by the DA's office in the past. Now it will be. I was stuttering there a little bit because I'm looking at Chopper. Oops. Let me find the right source for you there. There we go. This is Skyfox Live over a situation in Traynor, Delaware County. information we have is that this was a possible hazardous material situation on. This was on the 4100 block of Post Road at Monroe Energy. Hearing that patients were exposed to hydrofluoric acid. Don't have any confirmed information there, just that little piece of information. So we'll, and you see Chopper has just pulled away from the scene. So we are back on camera here and waiting for news conference begin in Philadelphia. We'll take you there as soon as that happens. In the meantime, I did record a little bit of the House Democratic leadership speaking earlier. This is their weekly news conference. We'll listen in for a little bit, and we'll take you to the Philadelphia news conference as soon as it begins. Again, this is the U.S. House Democratic leadership joining midstream here on tape delay, talking about, I imagine they're talking about the government shutdown and other legislative priorities.
It's bad enough, the FBI says, to work without pay, but we can only conduct administrative functions while doing it. The fear is our enemies know they can run freely. These are just some of the stories. This echoes throughout our security for our country, whether it's cybersecurity, TSA agents, flight control, food inspections. This burgeoning security crisis for our country is caused by this reckless shutdown. It is time to open government, pay our federal security workers, and get back to work for the American people.
Thank you, Catherine. Questions?
Sure. You mentioned hostages, I don't know, 3 or 4 times when you were talking about this. The majority leader put out a whole raft of polls yesterday that show pretty conclusively that you've got the moral high ground with the public right now. But all the damage that you mentioned to those hostages, does there come a time when Democrats say, okay, we have the moral high ground, we're winning the argument, but the damage is so great, we got to give the president what he wants to get those hostages out?
I think we've consistently taken the position that is shared by the American people, which is that it is reckless and irresponsible to shut down the government over a public policy dispute. We need to reopen the government so we can put those 800,000 plus workers back to work, stop hurting everyday Americans impacted by the departments that have been shut down. And then we've indicated we are willing to have a mature and comprehensive conversation about border security, but we cannot do it with the government shut down.
What is this? If I could just add to that too, I think part of the concern is that if we do not have these negotiations over border security with an open government, this president will continue to use this tool. And if we give in, if we pay the ransom now, what will happen the next time there's a disagreement with this president and Congress? There were 2 years to address this in majority-held House, Senate, and White House for the president. And he waited until this moment. And his complete lack of empathy and understanding of what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck, that how wrong it is to deny this work and affect our national security in this way. There is, if we negotiate by giving in to him on this, I'm afraid it will set a precedent that will be repeated.
Congressman, what is the State of the Union at this point? Will the president be coming before your chamber next week to deliver his address?
It's absolutely not clear in terms of what his present intention is, but I can say that unless the government is reopened, it's highly unlikely that the State of the Union is going to take place on the floor of the United States House of Representatives.
Follow up on the other question here about, you guys want the government open and then you can negotiate these other things. Mathematically, there aren't the votes in the Senate for a CR, certainly on the 60-vote threshold issue. How do you see getting around that? And I understand your position on wanting the government to negotiate, but that's the reality, the mathematical reality in the Senate. How do you see being able to get over that hurdle to get to that point? Otherwise, we remain at the same time.
It's a good thing that Mitch McConnell has finally exited the witness protection program and has decided to show up and hopefully move the Senate forward at least to having a meaningful debate and discussion, which will take place tomorrow. It's my understanding, based on conversations that have been had at the highest level between House Democrats and Senate Democrats, that there is a chance that a bipartisan agreement could be reached with respect to a continuing resolution related to the Department of Homeland Security. We've indicated that we're willing to agree upon a date certain. Our suggestion has been February 28th, where we reopen the Department of Homeland Security, continue current funding levels, but allow for a real, robust negotiation to take place. Hopefully, the Senate on Thursday will see fit to proceed in that fashion. There are a growing number of Republicans in the House and the Senate who understand that great damage is being done to the Republican brand and, more importantly, to the American people because of this reckless Trump shutdown.
You mentioned the $1.5 billion in border security that you're voting for today. That sounds pretty close to the $1.6 billion that originally, I believe the speaker said could not pass the House. What changed, and what's different about the $1.5 billion?
Well, the $1.5 billion that will be in today's appropriations bills were negotiated on a bipartisan basis between the House and the Senate, Democrats and Republicans. And one of the things that we've agreed to do, consistent with what our colleagues on the other side of the aisle in the House have said, is bring to the floor bills that have had House input. Today, we're going to bring to the floor bills that have had input from Republican members of the House of Representatives, and that is the difference between the previous bills that have been presented, which were all negotiated on a bipartisan basis by the Senate.
When you say that you can have a mature and responsible conversation about border security after the government is open, what does that conversation include? What's on the table? Is the wall on the table?
We are willing to invest in increased infrastructure, which includes the $500 million that are in today's appropriation bill with respect to legal ports of entry. By the way, the overwhelming majority of drugs that come into this country don't come over a wall or under a wall or across the border. They come in through legal ports of entry. We're willing to have a conversation about additional personnel when considering the fact that the Coast Guard is understaffed and Customs and Border Patrol agents are understaffed, particularly as it relates to customs. We're also willing to have a conversation about enhanced technology, which includes sensors, satellites, drones, cell phone towers, and enhanced communication capabilities. These are the things that would actually improve our border security. We're willing to have a bipartisan conversation about a comprehensive solution to border security. We are not willing to pay a $5.7 billion ransom note for a medieval border wall. That is a 5th century solution to a 21st century problem. House Democrats, like the American people, support 21st century border security.
It will no longer be a ransom note if the government is reopened. So is the wall a subject of negotiation, or could it be?
We're willing to invest in additional infrastructure, additional personnel, and additional technology.
Yep.
Chairman Thompson told us that he and others are working on a letter to send to the president describing a new package of border security funding. Can you describe what you know about that? What do you think is in that?
All right, it looks like our news conference here in Philadelphia is about to get underway. Let's take you live to DA Larry Krasner's news conference. He's joined by other city officials. They are discussing the enforcement of a lost and stolen handgun ordinance that's been on the books for about a decade. Let's listen into what they have to say.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to start by introducing some of our honored guests who will not be speaking, and also some of our honored guests and partners who will be speaking. We have with us today among those who will not be speaking directly, but I think are speaking with their presence. We have Michael Cogbill from the Charles Foundation, who wants us to know how important what we are announcing today is for people affected by violence and for people of color. We have Brian Miller from Heeding God's Call, whose life's work has an awful lot to do with the prevention of gun violence, who wants to make sure we know that what we are talking about today is an important disincentive to illegal gun trafficking. We have Jeff Dempsey and Christian Soltiziak from Ceasefire PA, who have, among other things, pointed out that when the state legislature fails to act, as is so common in these United States, and especially as is going on in Pennsylvania, it's important for municipalities to step up within their powers to take steps to keep people safe. We have Movita Johnson-Harrell, who, in addition to being our Chief of Victim Services and Restorative Justice, is also, in a prior life, the founder of the Charles Foundation, a foundation named after her son, who was murdered, as were 2 other members of her family who became victims of murder and gun violence. We have Elizabeth Lee from the organization Orange Wave, which, like some of the other organizations here, takes a keen interest in public safety and gun violence. And we have a number of people from Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, also known as Everytown for Gun Safety. We have Melissa Cardin, Lauren Williams, Andy Snyder, Jay Falk, and Cameron Watkins. Our speakers today will include Kimberly Burrell, who has herself experienced gun violence, and she'll explain that to you, and who is also a member of the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office's CVAC, which is the group that advises on victim-related issues. We have our Police Commissioner, Richard Ross, who has been a tremendous partner and asset in all of our efforts this year, even when we had slight disagreements, and we didn't have too many. He has been a tremendous asset. We have 2 of our finest councilmen, if one of them makes it here, but we have Kenyatta Johnson at this time, and we hope to have Curtis Jones shortly thereafter. We have Diana Cortez, who is the chair of the litigation group for the City of Philadelphia Law Department, and we will have Bilal Qayyum, very well-known community activist, here in the capacity of the Father's Day Rally Committee today. Oh, I'm sorry. And we have Council President Darrell Clark, who I apologize.
It's okay.
All right. Okay. So this whole thing starts with Council President Darrell Clark, and with the fact that in 2009, the council understood the importance of being proactive in efforts to interfere with illegal trafficking in guns on the street of Philadelphia. This is a battle that the council president has fought for 10 years. For 10 years. He's been trying to get a district attorney's office in Philadelphia to keep its promise and to actually pursue these cases. And we are delighted to have the opportunity to be able to step up and assist in that regard. But this is truly his work and the work of our city council and the work of our city that got us here. So we are here today to announce something that I view as being very common sense. It is a partnership between the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, Philadelphia City Council, the City Solicitor's Office, to enforce City Council's ordinance, which is designed to hold accountable irresponsible individuals who fail to report lost or stolen firearms. As I said, this ordinance has existed since 2009. It's pretty easy. Somebody steals your gun, you lose your gun, you got to get on the phone and call 911 to let them know that happened. That's it. This is not something that regulates guns. It doesn't even regulate gun owners. This is something that regulates people who say they have lost their guns or who say their guns are stolen. Now, why are we doing this? Well, it's real simple, and anybody who's been around criminal justice for 30 years, as I have, knows. A lot of the guns that are claimed to be lost and stolen never were. They were sold illegally, and they end up in the hands of people who commit crimes. It is extremely common that when we have a homicide, the gun that is used in the homicide was lawfully purchased by someone who had nothing to do with the homicide. Or the gun that may be found in the pocket of someone who is killed in a crime or who is arrested in connection with a crime was purchased legally by someone from a gun shop a long time ago. So how did that gun get from the legal purchaser to this crime? And the answer, far too often, is it was illegally sold. And when we go to investigate it, what we find is that the lawful purchaser is scratching his chin, saying, yeah, I got lost. Yeah, it disappeared from my car. Really? Did you tell your insurance company? No. Did you tell the police? No. But that's your story. Yup. And they've been getting away with it. And they've been getting away with it for a long time. Well, what we're talking about here today is designed to bring some accountability to those bogus stories, and it's also designed to elevate and lift up the honest folks whose guns were stolen or were lost legitimately, because all they got to do to be lifted up is lift up the phone and call 911. That's what people who aren't selling guns on the street do. And the ones who are selling guns on the street keep their mouths shut until those guns turn up in the middle of a crime. So, this law has been on the books for quite some time, but this is the first time the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office has stepped up to the plate and made a strong commitment to work with our partners to enforce the law. So here's a warning to every person in Philadelphia who has lost or had stolen or maybe did something illegal with their firearm. If your gun is lost or stolen and you do not report it, and the deadline is 24 hours, then you could face a fine of up to $2,000. For repeat offenders, do it twice, the penalty could be $2,000 and as much as 90 days in jail. I cannot tell you the numbers of times we find that there is a person who has purchased as many as 20 guns over many years. And when one of them pops up in a crime and we go to investigate, lo and behold, the rest of them are all missing too. None of it reported. Well, people who want to engage in that game, first of all, if we can prosecute them criminally for more serious things, we will. But if we cannot, we will go after them for this. The method, as I said, is simple. You call 911 within 24 hours of discovering your gun is lost or stolen. Now, we understand that even though we could enforce this, going back several years, we understand that there are some people who may not be aware. This ordinance was not publicized by prior district attorney's offices as it should have been because they were unwilling to prosecute. Well, we are here to publicize it, and we are also here to be even-handed and fair. So there will be a 30-day amnesty period under this ordinance for people who now, right now, report firearms that were lost or stolen in the past. 24 hours ago, 24 days ago, 5 years ago. The exception is for any investigation underway or initiated by other sources. So let me be clear. This is an amnesty for this ordinance only, and it's for people who do the right thing, which is step up and say, actually, my gun was lost a year ago, and this is how it got lost, and they provide that information to 911. This is not an amnesty for other crimes, and this is not an amnesty for something we are already investigating, and we are already actively investigating some of these cases. We have some that are very close to being ready to bring forward, and you will be getting further news about that in the fairly near future. Ultimately, this enforcement mechanism is about people. It's not about guns, and it strives to improve public safety. The Gun Violence Task Force will trace gun ownership to the last known owner. Upon interviewing the last known owner, if the Gun Violence Task Force, and this, by the way, would be the DA's side of the Gun Violence Task Force, the DA's office, because we are the ones taking the lead on this. The Attorney General's office is not involved. If we determine that someone was involved in a straw purchasing case and we can prosecute it, we will. If no illegal transfer occurred, then we will conclude the investigation at that level. However, all the relevant investigatory materials will then be reviewed by the Philadelphia DAO's working group for a city ordinance infraction. If the city code requiring gun owners to report lost or stolen firearms is found to have been violated by this working group, and it's the owner's first offense, the case will be referred to the city solicitor's office for a civil penalty of not more than $2,000. If it is not the owner's first offense, in other words, we're on two or more, then the Philadelphia DA's office will prosecute pursuant to Section 10838A, failure to report lost or stolen firearms. That would be a summary offense, which can result in up to 90 days in jail, as well as that fine. At this time, I would ask to come forward, and she is already forward, Kimberly Burrell, to deliver a few remarks about her experience with gun violence.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. As D.A. Krasner said, my name is Kimberly Burrell. I lost my son, Darrell A. Prey, Jr. in 2009, around the same time that the ordinance was enacted. And to state the fact that we're here in 2019 still talking about something that has not changed, the way that, in particular, African-American males die on the streets of the city of Philadelphia, is really disheartening. My son was murdered. The young man who killed him was 22. I said Darrell was 18. The young man's gun was a straw sale purchase. My son had a gun on him that was never discharged. That was also a straw sale purchase. So we have two children with guns on them that they did not purchase. Okay, one's dead, and one's in jail. Okay, the young man who murdered my son also, his brother was lost that day. Consequently, from July to November, 8 lives were lost directly related to my son passing. We're talking about 8 lives lost, and none of these young men own these guns. That's an atrocity to me. It took me a long time to be able to be my son's voice. It took me a long time to get past the pain of losing a child. What I really want the community to understand is that it just doesn't affect that one child when someone is murdered. It affects a mother, it affects a father, it affects communities, it connects everyone around us. My son had 4 other siblings. They are still being affected to this day by that murder. That has to change. If we have 2 or 3 kids dying every other day and they're all in the same community, this hurts our city and it hurts our country. Darrell was a loving boy. He was 18. He was in the streets. I did my best as a mother to try to deter him. He was signed up to go to school in August. He died in July. Imagine that. He graduated high school at 15, so he wasn't a dummy. He wasn't a dummy. I just want you to take from me is that, what I want you to take from me is this. The community hurts when guns are not being accounted for. We hurt. Financially, mentally, socially, physically, it hurts a community, and it eventually hurts a city and then a country. I just want y'all to take that from there. I still feel pain. Yesterday, I was just going off about, my son missing. And I was thinking like, oh, shoot, today I have to speak about him. He was on my mind. He was in my spirit yesterday. He was letting me know, Mom, it's okay. I'm on the CVAC committee as well. And I just want to tell you, to hear the stories that we go through, I still feel the same pain. 10 years later, we're still dealing with this. The press will report. That's it. My son could have lived also. He could have lived, but he laid on the ground for about 35 minutes bleeding to death. Because probably no one wanted to touch him. No one wanted to throw him in their car and drive him to the hospital, scared that more bullets would fly. Bullets not owned or not purchased by the people that are using them. They don't have the money to get these guns in here. So someone's buying them for them. Someone needs to be accountable. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And this is a war we all need to fight. We can no longer look the other way, because if it happens to me, it's going to affect you one way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burrell. And next we will hear from a truly central figure on this issue, Council President Darrell L. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. DA. Good morning. DA, thank you for having the stones, and that's not the word I want to use. Yes. Right? Not the word I would. I'm just saying. I was advised not to say the other word. All right, because the simple reality is that we were promised years ago, and it was teed up, right? We were ready to proceed. The mayor, the police commissioner at that time, I think you were, the police commissioner was here, actually here as the deputy police commissioner at that time. We were ready, and the district attorney just decided that we're not going to go that direction because there was some constitutional issue involved. Well, you know what? Guess what? We don't care about the Constitution. We care about our citizens. We care about our young people. We care about the people in the city of Philadelphia. So I want to thank you so much for what you're doing today. This is real simple. As was said, years ago, we moved forward. We thought we had a good sense case on a very reasonable approach to gun safety. And the simple reality is that you go to King of Prussia, right? You're out there shopping and you leave your credit card on the table and, you know, it gets lost, or somebody picks your pocket in the middle of rush hour in terms of the Christmas holiday, right? First thing you do is get on that phone and call your bank and say, stop the credit card because I don't want anybody to use it, all right? Your car gets stolen, right? Look out, morning, car's gone. You on there calling commissioner and his folks, 911, somebody stole my car, right? I don't want somebody to take my car and strip it or run into somebody, then I'm held liable. So if you do all of that for a car and a credit card, what is the problem with you reporting a gun that's lost or stolen? I don't understand that, right? I don't understand that. So today, Mr. District Attorney, I want to thank you, your team. I want to thank everybody here for the support of my colleagues in council, Councilman Johnson and Councilman Jones, who's not here, and actually Councilwoman Parker, who was in the General Assembly when we initially passed this bill. I want to thank all of the support that was given. It is a new day. We're going to move ahead. And as was said by the District Attorney, we're sending notice. And we're going to put this out in a very, very aggressive way to let people know you have 30 days to, report the gun. Commissioner, 911? 911. There's no excuse. Thank you. Thank everybody for involved. It's time to deal with this very, very critical issue to make sure that these guns don't get in the hands of people who are irresponsible. So thank you so much, Mr. DA.
Thank you, Fred.
Ovaries? Just saying. Stones, ovaries? Yeah, same thing. Intestinal fortitude. Anyway, at this time we would like to call forward Commissioner Richard Ross, who obviously must be losing sleep, as we all are, about this issue. I think any truly great police commissioner would be losing sleep in any great American city.
All right, thank you, and I guess it's good morning still. Guns, just like politics and religion, difficult to speak about. People usually revert back to their neutral corners, and you can't have an intelligent conversation, which is unfortunate. But here's the reality, is what we know from the research. There are actually people out there who are avid gun lovers who are actually in support of things like this. When you strip all the rhetoric away, most of those folks actually are more in support of this. It's just a minority that has a very loud voice that dominates this conversation, would even have you believe that, responsible gun owners actually are not in support of this, which they are, because I know many of them. And so one of the things that clearly, we want to deal with is a mechanism to people understand this is important to us. This is one of those things that we believe will help us. You have to play this role, and we can't get mired in this notion that this is not going to matter. Every little thing does matter. All these things are interconnected. All these lives are touched. I mean, you hear that powerful story about 8 lives lost in that period of time. And that gets replayed over and over again with the back and forth. And people always, well, how did the guns get here? Well, it's already been explained. I mean, the ATF will tell you that's how they get here. Straw purchasing, people losing their guns, people selling guns. There's not a tractor trailer that pulls up at Broad and such and lets out a bunch of guns. That's not what happens. That's not what has happened in a number of years now. But what we have seen, this is my 30th year doing this in this city. And for 30 years, we've been dealing with the same issue. We deal with ebbs and flows in terms of our numbers, but it's the same intractable problem over and over with real lives behind the numbers that get reported. And when you hear about stories like this that absolutely break your heart, you got to wonder why people won't step up and do something as simple as this. And so, if it's just one step in that direction, is something that we're going to celebrate. And we've got, people in place in our gun violence task force that we put in place even in the department that we believe that'll help us. So thank you, Council President, DA, for pushing this forward, and so that everyone else recognize you do play a role in this in some way, shape, or fashion. As was mentioned previously, all of us are touched by this, whether you're touched by it financially or you're just touched by it in terms of the image of the city that you don't want to have, and that goes on and gets replayed over and over again. So hopefully folks will understand just picking up the phone and dial 911, just let that play out and we'll go from there.
Thanks again to our Commissioner, Richard Ross. I would now like to introduce Councilman Kenyatta Johnson, who for 8 years has been a champion and has been passionate about stopping gun violence, and even before that, as a state rep, he was passionate about those issues, including about this particular ordinance. Councilman?
I want to take a moment and ask everyone to just applaud the efforts of this district attorney for having the courage and stepping up to the plate and enforcing this ordinance. I just want to thank you because we are truly in a state of emergency right now as a city when it comes to gun violence. Last week, the council president and the mayor and other stakeholders unveiled a plan to talk about safer communities. But I'm an advocate in making sure we track down where these illegal guns are coming from. And this being a young man growing up in South Philadelphia and who personally lost a family member to gun violence, I remember in the early 90s we had a drug problem, but in 2000s we have a gun problem. And I'm a personal advocate in recognizing that these guns are coming from somewhere. The council president knows and everyone else knows there are no AR-15 factories in Strawberry Mansion, and there are no AR-15 factories in Point Breeze. So these guns are coming from somewhere. This is a step in the right direction. But most importantly, the reason why I applaud the efforts for the district attorney is because it's going to take all of us to step up and roll up our sleeves to address this issue. I'm going to take my elected official hat off. As a dad of 2 African-American young men growing up in this city of Philadelphia, if we keep going in this direction, the chances of them reaching adulthood are slim. So for me, this is personal. It's not about politics, because I recognize if we don't do everything we can possible to keep the guns out of the hands of our children, then this city will go down the drain. And most importantly, we can't have a tale of two cities where everyone on one side is doing great, but babies are being murdered in the streets of Philadelphia on a day-to-day basis. So I applaud this young lady for stepping up here and talking about the pain that she has to deal with day in and day out. That's the life I deal with when I'm out on the street talking to mothers and fathers who have lost their lives to gun violence. So this is a step in the right direction. I feel a sense of hope, and let's all roll up our sleeves and get some work done. Thank you, Mr. District Attorney.
Thank you again to Councilman Kenyatta Johnson. And now we will hear from Diana Cortez, who is the chair of the litigation group of the City of Philadelphia Law Department.
Thank you, District Attorney Krasner. Good morning, everyone. Before I go into this, I want to thank everyone who's up here, and in particular echo the thank yous and the thank yous to District Attorney Krasner for having the courage to go forward with this ordinance when many others did not want to take that stand. I also want to thank in particular those working with him closely in order to make this day possible. Mike Lee, Nancy Winkleman, who we at the City Law Department worked closely in order to get us to the today. So I want to thank them. I want to thank Council President Clark and Councilman Johnson and Jones, who couldn't be with us. In particular, Council President Clark, not only for initiating this ordinance, but also for not giving up on it, and also Councilman Johnson, and we know Jones too, based on his statements on the mayor's gun initiative press conference last week. They take this very seriously, and so we thank you for your support in this. I also want to thank the Law Department's legislative unit, who were critical in drafting this ordinance, and in addition in trying to make sure that there was ways to enforce it and make sure that we were able to do so. I want to thank Commissioner Ross and the Philadelphia Police Department for their continued commitment to investigating and making sure we deal with this, really this public health crisis. And as Ms. Burrell so bravely and eloquently stated, this is a war that we are fighting, and that we can no longer stay silent and stay idle. So right now, on behalf of the law department, I am enthusiastic and excited to be able to play our role in this fight, to pick up our arms, our typewriter, our computers, our papers, and get ready to review these files and file them in court and make sure that we keep these different individuals accountable. The law department embraces its part in the city's multifaceted approach to combat the crisis of gun violence. So just to give you a little information on the law department's unit who will be handling these cases, it is the Code and Public Nuisance Litigation Unit, and it's a unit comprised of 15 lawyers. Last year, they prosecuted over 8,000 civil cases and brought in over $2 million in fines. So while they are a small group, they are a formidable group. And under the direction of Kristen Bray, their chief, and myself, we stand ready to enforce this and to take up our fight in this war. Thank you.
Thanks again to the City Law Department, which of course is partnering with us in pursuing these different remedies. And also thank you for recognizing Nancy Winkleman, our chief of our law division in the Philadelphia DA's office, and Mike Lee, who's right there in his bow tie, who is an all-purpose repairman for justice. And this is just one more of the projects he's been fixing with that toolbox. All right. And now we would like to call forward one of Philadelphia's best known and frankly most eloquent community activists, and that is Bilal Qayyum, who is here for the Father's Day Rally Committee.
Good morning. President Darrell Clark, Council Member Kenyatta Johnson, and also our DA. Let me quickly say this. This T-shirt I have on, 10 years ago, I walked to Harrisburg. It took me 6 days and a whole bunch of corns on my feet, but I made it. The walk was about two things: increasing the job opportunities, because I really believe creating jobs is going to help reduce shootings. But the other thing was two pieces of legislation was in the State House. One was the lost and stolen, and the other one was one gun a month. You can only buy one gun a month, but you could buy 12 guns a year. Since that time, I have been out in the forefront every single day almost, rallying and organizing folks. I am glad to stand here with my comrades that are all involved in the struggle every day. As of 2016, we had 1,276 shootings in the city. 2017, 1,208 shootings. 2018, 1,364 shootings, which is a total of 3,848 citizens who have been shot in the city of Philadelphia in the last 3 years. I really believe this with the DA, and I will say at Councilman Clark and all the young ladies in the room, forgive me, but I'm going to say it. I'm glad that our DA had the balls to stand up and is going to push this, because I really believe that this is going to help, and I know that the commissioner will verify that probably out of these 3,848 shootings, almost all were illegal guns, or guns that, when I'm saying illegal, were lost or stolen that someone found or sold. So I'm very happy to see today that this is happening. The last thing I want to say, and this is to the reporters, there was a study done 15 years ago in Seattle, Washington, and they traced 66 guns over a period of a year that were stolen from a house. All 66 of those guns ended up in some act of violence in the city of Seattle. So that shows you they were legal guns that were stolen out of someone's house that ended up in a crime. So that shows you how important that this bill is, and with the support of the DA, and once again I got to commend him and the council folks for standing up. And most importantly, I know that everybody's standing behind me is glad and excited that this day is happening. It's a shame it took 10 years, but sometimes the struggle is not overnight success, it's long-term success. Thank you.
I just have another brief comment or two, and then we are going to take questions for this distinguished panel here. Although I cannot stress enough how wonderful I think it is that the council president has pushed for a decade for this. I think that says a lot. So in a little bit, you're going to hear a loud, irritating noise. It's going to sound like a broken engine. That would be the National Rifle Association, also known as our NRA. I will stand with any elected official, any community activist, any organization that is willing to stand up to an organization that after the Las Vegas shooting likes bump stocks. I will stand with any other elected officials who recognize the insanity of wanting it to be okay to produce your own gun with a 3D printer. I have a hunter safety certificate. I obtained it. My children all have hunter safety certificates. My mother's side of the family all hunted. My father-in-law's side of the family were all military, and many of them remain hunters. This is not about guns. This is about being reasonable. The positions the NRA has taken are similar to saying we cannot have license plates on cars, we cannot do inspections of cars, and we can't even regulate the age of the drivers or whether or not they can see. Their position on reasonable approaches to regulation guns is absurd, and here we have an ordinance that is not even regulating guns. All that we are doing here is saying if you don't have your guns anymore, then you better go ahead and report it within 24 hours. But you are going to hear that loud screeching noise, that sound of a broken engine. And yes, it is really true that the NRA is a broken engine in our United States, that it is completely out of touch, and its foolishness is out of touch with what people who appropriately handle and own guns believe. Are there any questions for our distinguished group? Yes.
How do you fight the NRA? I mean, you know, you're right. You're going to file some sort of lawsuit, legal action. How do you push back?
Well, you know, if they wish to file, as they almost always do, some sort of a legal action, then the city of Philadelphia will, of course, defend its opportunity to enforce this regulation. It will be decided in the courts. We don't think that they are legally correct. In fact, we're pretty sure that they're not legally correct. But, you know, I suppose they can do what they've always done, and they can do it while they're in the middle of an investigation for their involvement with Russian money, and they can do it while they're suffering difficulties in collecting donations, which I guess is what happens when you're in favor of more and more guns completely unregulated in the middle of a spate of school shootings across the country. Well, I think that is certainly, I don't know that I'd say it's a legal argument. I think it's just true that we're not regulating guns. These are people who say, I don't have my guns anymore. We're talking about what it is you have to do when you don't have something anymore. So I think that that's true, but I will defer to the city law department, who may very well want to put what they have to say in writing as opposed to talking about it here.
The council president introduced this legislation 10 years ago. Why did the former DA not take up this issue? In your
I hate to pick between two wonderful journalists, but I'm glad you both have the same question. You're asking me why prior district attorneys did not do this? I mean, I'm sorry, I missed that.
10 years ago, the council president introduced.
Oh, yes. Okay, I'm sorry. I just was having difficulty hearing. So you want to know why prior DAs didn't pursue it? Well, I guess you could ask them, but I will say this. There certainly is a long history of prosecutors in the United States making decisions that were political and specifically about their own politics, their own career advancement. And we are living in a state where it has long been believed that in order to run statewide, you got to be good with the NRA. So, you know, I can't read their minds. I can certainly tell you I think any claim that they had a good legal basis for not following it is disingenuous. I've examined this closely, so have all the lawyers involved. And, you know, frankly, I've said it many times, I'd much rather do the right thing than get reelected.
Council President, can you offer some clarification? When it passed in 2008, Lynn Abraham said it was unconstitutional, but Mayor Nutter said that they didn't need the district attorney's office to enforce it, that the city could do it on its own. That doesn't sound like that's the case anymore.
Well, we always needed the district attorney's office to enforce because you had to be able to take it to court. And the understanding was at that time that we would immediately, as the DA says, serve some papers from the National Rifle Association. This particular case actually made it all the way to the Commonwealth Court. The Supreme Court, which we had hoped we would make it to as possibly the defendant, said that we did not have a person involved with the NRA that had the appropriate standing, meaning that nobody enforced the law, i.e. taking an action. That's not going to be the case in this particular instance because the DA will enforce the law. There will be an action taken as it relates to this ordinance, so we anticipate that we'll probably back in court. We welcome that conversation because we really think that we're within the rights of our jurisdiction.
Mayor Nutter misspoke when he said that the city couldn't enforce this without the district attorney's office?
I actually don't remember him saying that, but we always needed the district attorney, and we had a big meeting in the Mayor Nutter's office, and Mayor was ready. Ramsey at that point in time was ready. We were ready to move ahead. Initially, Lynn Abraham, who was the DA at the early part of this conversation, basically said she wasn't going to do it. The subsequent DA indicated during the course of the election that he was going to do it, but when he got elected, for whatever reason, we got a similar response that because of the Constitution, he wasn't prepared to proceed. Fortunately, this DA puts people in this particular case, particularly for legislation that's clearly within our right to enforce, ahead of that particular mindset. You're welcome.
Mr. Attorney Kreiser, you said that the Attorney General is not involved in this. Did you want him involved? Did you seek him involved? Did he decline to be involved in some way?
I think you could direct that to the State Attorney General. I can tell you that I will stand with any chief prosecutor that stands up to the NRA.
Did you ask him to be involved? Did you folks reach out to him and ask him to be involved in the effort?
There is a joint task force, which is the Gun Violence Task Force, that includes both members of the Attorney General's office and members of the District Attorney's office, and they work together in order to do gun enforcement. We are collaborating in many, many ways with that office. However, they have declined to participate in this effort.
They have? You asked them and they said they wouldn't take part in this.
My answer is that they have declined to participate in this effort.
Is $2,000 punitive enough for people involved in the business of moving guns onto the black market?
No, it's not.
So how does it stop anything?
Well, let me answer your question there. It is $2,000 as a civil fine for a first offense. It is $2,000 plus up to 90 days in jail for a second or third or fourth or 10th offense. This is the tool we as a municipality have available to us. What we really need is the Pennsylvania legislature to stand up and the United States government to stand up to the NRA and do the right thing. But we are going to operate within our lane to do as much as we can. And I think this was an excellent effort on the part of City Council 10 years ago. And I frankly hope it'll have a tremendous impact.
Do you have a number on what percentage of guns used in crime were either lost or stolen?
I do not offhand. Does anyone else up here?
How about murders? Do you know numbers on number of people?
May I just have a second here? Let me just check and see if I have an answer to that question.
No, we don't have a number exactly on that, but we know that, and Mayor Nutter said it, that 85% or so of the guns used in murder in the city were handguns, and of those, 100% of those guns were illegal guns. And this ordinance is intended to be a disincentive to gun trafficking. The streets are awash with illegal guns. And this is finally one step, an important step, to try to cut that so that there are fewer guns on the street. It's harder to get these guns, and so on and so forth. We know this last year, the gun murder rate increased in this city. In the rest of the country, it's going down. This is a problem that Philadelphia has. It's a horrible problem that Philadelphia has. And anything that can be done to try to stop the movement of guns to the street is important. It should have been done 10 years ago. It's great to see this district attorney take this on, and we assume that he's going to take on even more because we hear him speak. But something needs to be done, and thank God Larry's going to do it.
Larry, do you have any numbers to back this up? What percentage of guns out there would fall under this? What percentage of gun owners have worked in a straw purchase method?
You know, I can give you anecdotal information. I don't have specific numbers. I can certainly tell you that if we look within the frame of guns that are confiscated from homicide scenes, for example, or guns that are eventually connected to the bullets that were used to kill, if we look within that framework, we see extremely large numbers of them that were purchased illegally. The average person who is accused of a homicide is not a person who is eligible to purchase a firearm at a lawful establishment. But if you would like us to see if we can dig in and get you more statistics, I'm happy to do that.
Do you think your effort will convince the legislature here anyway, which has changed a bit, to one, limit the number of guns that a legal purchaser can buy in Pennsylvania during a legal purchase, which I think is almost unlimited, and the idea of making the straw purchase of guns, in fact, a criminal offense? Can this convince them to move in that way?
Well, here's the reality. In the midterm elections, 54% of Pennsylvanians voted for Democratic candidates, but the state is still gerrymandered, and it's in the stranglehold of a Republican Party that refuses to condemn Donald Trump. That's the reality. I don't think that we can expect courageous and intelligent legislation to come from the Republican members of our legislature. On the other hand, we did pick up a bunch of seats in Pennsylvania and nationally, and we have some very enthusiastic, forward-thinking, modern, and in many cases young legislators coming out of Philadelphia, both at the state level and also at the national level. My office, which has a policy team and also is willing to participate in any way that we can with assisting with this type of legislation, has already reached out to these folks and said, please, we don't want credit, we don't want control. If there's something we can do to give you the science, if there's something we can do to assist with language, let us know. And I'm very excited about what we may see coming from some of our Philadelphia area legislators.
Mr. Patrick, I know that with the laws that passed in 2008, that they would fine individuals if the gun was seized or found to be in the commission of a crime. I spoke to the leader of a support group for mothers who lost their victims of violence, and they suggested a task force. You already have one, but that periodically, either quarterly or annually, checks in with gun owners and does an inspection to see if they still own that. Councilman Jones yesterday expressed support for that kind of measure. Is there any appetite in your office to support something like that?
There is appetite to support measures like that, but understand that our federal legislation has really made it very difficult to get access to all kinds of information, including information about where a gun that was used in a killing was originally purchased. A lot of this was done in order to make sure there would not be civil lawsuits against gun retailers. It was, of course, spearheaded by the NRA. So a lot of these sensible, intelligent, regulatory things we might want to do, or a lot of the investigations we might want to do, have been made more difficult by things like the TR Amendment and other types of legislation that have come down over the years. This will be a process, no matter how much this newest generation, who I believe are going to turn these issues around, it'll be a process that's going to take a while for us to change this so we can change that, so we can investigate this, so we can get that kind of legislation.
Just a quick clarifying question. Does the DA's office or maybe the city's solicitor's office have a list of registered gun owners in the city of Philadelphia? Is that a data point that's available?
I think the answer to that is no. Yeah, the answer is no. They do probably have a list of people who have a permit to carry a firearm, but that's a very different question, and that is seldom going to be helpful in identifying people who are actually in the process of committing crimes. Let's remember, right now, not every gun-related crime gets solved. I mean, that's true in every single city, and needless to say, it's also true here. So the notion that we have eyes on every gun out there when there are more guns than people in the United States is simply an impossibility. But I will stand with any legislator or any elected official, any activist, any community group that wants to bring about more sensible legislation around public safety in relation to guns.
Where's the ATF here today? They can help you in a real way track guns. That's what they do. I mean, why are they not here?
There is no specific reason why they're not here. We work directly and indirectly with ATF all the time. We do so through the Gun Violence Task Force. But if what you're asking me is, do I think Donald Trump is good with this? I think he's not good with this. I think Donald Trump is good with the NRA, real good with the NRA, and I think the NRA is real good with Donald Trump and with Russia. So I wouldn't expect the ATF to come stampeding in these doors right now.
But what the ATF does for lost and stolen guns is, if they see what's happening is they are making visits to both, I think, private citizens and at gun stores where they believe there are large numbers of guns moving up. Have you not been told that? Do you not know that? Do you know?
Sir, I have been in criminal justice for 30 years. I have done tens of thousands of cases. I'm well aware of what the ATF does, and I've dealt with them directly myself for close to 30 years. I'm aware of that. Every law enforcement agency that deals with guns does that. That is nothing extraordinary. It's also not what we're doing here. What we are doing here is we're trying to bring an additional layer of responsibility. And no, I don't think that the United States government in this year with this president has any interest in doing something that is contrary to what the NRA wants.
Previously, DA, you've not supported a gun court, which was supported under the previous administration. Do you anticipate that changing at all?
Well, it depends on what you mean by a gun court. If what you mean by a gun court is a return to policies that have not advanced things, then no. If what you mean is a return to mandatory type approaches to criminal justice which have failed, the answer is no. But gun court, just like focused deterrence, just like prevention, is a vague term. And there certainly are some types of specific courts related to guns that we would support.
What about gun stat? Would you consider visiting that?
Gun stat as it existed in this office, no, because it was nothing but a batting average within the office for the cases that were already in the office, and it served no purpose. A lot of the supervisors in here advised me they spent 25% of their time compiling these batting averages as opposed to doing things that were, frankly, much more serious in relation to actually preventing violence. Let us remember, this year, we are 5 years into annual increases in the number of homicides in Philadelphia County. And that all happened while GunStat was going on, whatever it was. Ultimately, it was clear to us that the way it was orchestrated in this office, it was more of an impediment than a help to actually getting at gun violence.
Commissioner Ross, assuming that these guns are, as was mentioned, are stolen from legal gun owners, do you have any insight on what the reason people don't report stolen guns? Why, if it's simply just making a call to 911 saying my gun is stolen, why is that such a hard thing for people to do?
Oh, some people it's simply because I don't have to. I mean, it might sound simplistic, but I don't have to do it. And so that's unfortunate, and it sounds basic, and, the DA started, as well as the council president, it's common sense ordinance that we should utilize. Look, this is not an easy endeavor, but you got to start somewhere, right? And you got to be willing to do something. You got to try to get some traction somewhere. And so I don't think anybody here is in any way suggesting that this is a panacea for the gun violence we're dealing with here and in many cities across the country. But you've got to do something, and this is why we're for it. And as I started, there are far more people who are going to be in favor of it than you might believe. And that doesn't mean there won't be a fight, because I think they're prepared for that. But there are people who are avid gun lovers who just have common sense, and they know this just is something that should be done. That's the bottom line.
They don't report the gun because they've sold the gun. That's what's happening, right?
Well, that happens in some cases, but understand there are a myriad of reasons. Some of it is what you said. Some of it is because you don't have to. And so if you don't have to, and remember, there's a nexus between some level of criminality. If I know I can do this and I don't have to, I mean that's kind of that goes to reason that if I want or I'm inclined to, right? But let me just say, and this is just my opinion. When you asked a question about $2,000. Don't think that everyone who may sell a gun is a gun trafficker, and they might be an opportunist. And now if that dissuades you from doing that because you wouldn't have otherwise done it, and this may be just an opportunity to say, I'm going to sell this gun, it's no big deal. It is all a big deal, And so if you can stop a couple people from doing it, and then exponentially that has an impact, then that's something we're for.
But the process is you buy 10 guns, you take 5, you put them on the street, you don't have to report them. That's really the process.
Well, I mean, for some. But again, remember, I keep saying this over and over and over again, and this is not stats according to me. I just had a meeting with all my federal partners, and it wasn't about guns in particular, and I just had them reinforce. Guns are trafficked in a number of ways. This is one. This is just one, right? But again, Do not think that there's some boat or some truck just coming somewhere. I mean, that's not what's happening, you know? But if you have the opportunity to put, whether it's 5 guns, 1 gun, or you lose your gun and you just don't even bother to report it, all those things are problematic to us, right? And so, because at the end of the day, if an individual gets his hands, or her hands, it's usually him, unfortunately, on a gun, you know, it then becomes a crime gun, because if you use it against a person illegally and you're not otherwise legally licensed to carry that gun, that is an illegal gun. We're trying to stop the flow of guns into the hands of people who would not otherwise use them wisely at a gun range or on a hunting range or what have you. And so that's the bottom line. But again, for us, this is just one piece, and I think the DA and the council president would tell you that. They're not suggesting that this is the end-all, the be-all of any stretch of the imagination.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. I do just want to give you a little quickie nuts and bolts, though, because what we're talking about here is conceptual. Let me just tell you hypothetically. You're going to get the actual stories of these cases as we begin to prosecute them both civilly and criminally. But here's just a hypothetical for you. Let's just say Philadelphia DA's office does a drug raid. In the course of the drug raid, someone runs out of a major stash house in a heroin fentanyl operation, is being chased by police, and that person is holding a gun and is running away from police. Needless to say, we now have a situation where civilians and police are placed at great danger because that gun is in the hand. And when that person is arrested and the gun is taken away and they trace it to see where it came from, well, it came from someone who actually went to a gun shop and purchased that gun. And do you know what the story is coming from that person? Well, yeah, 2 years ago, I bought 2 guns. Really? Where'd you keep them? I kept them in a trash can. I kept them in a trash can outside of the house because I didn't want to upset my grandmother. Funny thing is, they disappeared 3 days later. Did you report it? No. How much did you buy the gun for? $100. This is what we're talking about. Ridiculous, nonsensical lies that are served up after a gun is in the hand of a criminal organization, endangering police, endangering civilians, defending the sale of opioids. That's what we're talking about. And that's why it is so important to be able to show that when someone does not report their gun lost or stolen, there's a reason for it, and that reason is that they are engaging in illegal activity on the street. Thank you very much.
All right. You've been watching a news conference where Philadelphia's district attorney and other city officials have been announcing that they will enforce a lost and stolen gun ordinance. It's been on the books for almost 10 years. You heard the DA give the punishments that are possible if you commit that crime of failing to report your gun lost or stolen. And at the very tail end there, talking a little bit of mentioning the type of circumstances investigators come across when trying to clear cases where illegal guns have been used in the commission of crimes in the city, murders, homicides, shootings. Let's get you a look at weather before we go. Benjamin Franklin Parkway in Philadelphia, looking towards the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Current conditions right now, it's 37 degrees outside. Dew point is 17. Winds out of the southwest at 6 miles per hour. Ultimate Doppler showing there is mixed precipitation falling to our north and west, so if you're headed that way, keep in mind the roads could be slick. I believe there's the potential for some freezing rain out that way, so sleet as well. Be careful if you're headed to our north. There was a winter storm watch up that way. I believe it was actually a winter weather advisory. That's what's in the purple there. You see the flood watch in Philadelphia, the green there. That's for our next weather maker, which we'll show you in a few moments. Here are your current temperatures. Warming up in Philly. It certainly feels a lot warmer out there than it has in recent days. Those biting wind chills and has not been pleasant. Ocean City, Maryland up to 50 degrees. See a 59 in West Virginia, Clarksburg there. So warmer air creeping in for a little while. That's what's going to bring us our rain. See, down in Florida, there's still 76 in Miami, 75 in Tampa, 70 in New Orleans, the 38 in Houston. So cold air not too far behind. It's quite a difference right there. 40s and 50s on the West Coast. You see Minneapolis, the cold point right now with 19 degrees. Here are the wind chills right now in the city. You see it's 30, feels like 33. Feels like 40 down in Wildwood, but only 19 up in Mount Pocono. That's how much warmer we are than yesterday at the same time. 15 degrees warmer in Philly, 20 degrees warmer in Lancaster, 25 degrees warmer in Cape May. Your wind speeds, about 10 in Philadelphia right now, 16 in Dover, 15 in Mount Pocono. Some gusts occurring now, picked up a little bit, 21 in Philadelphia, 23 in Mount Pocono. Visibility not too bad. Here's your look at satellite. Here comes your look at Futurecast. See that precipitation passing to our north, and later today and overnight into Thursday, you see the rain start to move in. By 4 a.m. when good day comes on, areas like Reading and Allentown could be seeing heavy precipitation. 7 a.m. for the morning rush hour. The heaviest stuff is moving a little bit further south, and you see there's still heavier rain to come, so that explains our flood watch in the area. Long range, we are looking at the chance of some snow Saturday into Sunday, but most of it avoiding our area. See, there is another snow chance Sunday night. Overall, we're calling today a 6 on our Fox 29 Weather Authority forecast by the numbers. And here's a look at your 7-day forecast. Today should warm up to 45 degrees, cloudy with some rain later on, rainy and breezy. Thursday, high of 55, but temperatures will be dropping. See, we'll be 20 degrees cooler on Friday, but sunny. We'll call that a 7 on our forecast by the numbers. Saturday, sunny and cold, 31. Sunday, sun and clouds, 42. Some sunshine Monday. Looks like we may dodge that snow, but there is a chance of, while the temperatures are cold, but there is another shower chance cropping up on Tuesday, 44. We'll, of course, have your complete forecast for you, our meteorologist team, on the Fox 29 News at 5, 6, 10, and 11 tonight. Take another look at Market Street outside our studios. I want to thank you very much for joining us today on Fox 29 News Now. We're with you weekdays after Good Day Philadelphia at 10 a.m. Have a great rest of your day and take care. Thanks for watching.